Okay, I am live. Hi everyone. Welcome back to another one of our weekly career classes that we do on Saturdays. My name is Aditi and I'll be your host for today's live session. Thank you all for joining in. I'll just wait a few minutes for people to join in and then we can begin with the session. Okay, I think we have a few people. So let's just begin. So for today's weekly career class, we will be talking about, as you can see on your screen, careers and opportunities in the research field. And not just that, we will also be clearing a lot of misconceptions and myths that you might have about research. So if you are someone who wants to get into research or know more about it, you can just keep watching this live. To talk about our topic for today, we have joining with us today as a speaker, Ms. Joyce John. Hi and welcome.
Hi, Aditi. Thank you for having me.
Thank you. Before we begin, I'll just give a brief introduction. Um, she's an exceptionally gifted PhD scholar, as you can see, at IISc Bangalore. She has excelled both within academia and beyond. She was a rank holder in her BSc and MSc programs before securing an All India rank of 26 in the prestigious DBT exam for PhD admissions. Her work unraveling metastasis pathways in cancer has already led to an international conference presentation. Additionally, she has also won the 2023 Euraxis Science Slam, earning a sponsored trip to represent India's research talent in Europe. I'm sorry if I had pronounced the name a little incorrectly. If it was incorrect, you can correct me.
Thank you, Aditi. That was a very nice introduction. It's good to hear about your research like that.
Okay, thank you. So, just before we start the presentation and the session, if you have any questions, whoever is watching us, please don't hesitate to use the live chat to ask your questions or your thoughts, and we will be taking up your questions towards the end of the live. So, with that, I think we can begin.
Sure. Okay. Good evening. Thank you to iDreamCareer for having me. And I'll be talking about clearing misconceptions in research careers and about what we'll be covering in today's discussion. I'll be beginning with my journey from school to a PhD. It was not what I planned. My research topic, what I actually do in IISc, life sciences as career options, myths about research life, and exams and entrances to pursue pure sciences in IISc and IISc. So I'll begin first with letting you know that this is not what I envisioned for myself, and the journey towards getting a PhD or getting entry into a PhD program is not as straightforward. It's very much like the bottom image. There is a different reality to it. There are ups and downs, and I'll take you through all of them one by one. So first, I'll begin with my schooling. I got my schooling from Auxilium Convent School, Kolkata. I was a ISc board student, and I chose physics, chemistry, biology, and maths. Now, back then, for anybody who's pursuing sciences, there were only two options. You either be an engineer or you be a doctor. My maths wasn't that great, and I loved biology. So quite naturally, I envisioned that I would make it to being a doctor. And I had a much needed heartbreak the year I applied and wrote the NEET exams. I did clear them. I cleared them only for a BDS, and that made the dream to be a doctor a blur. But around that time, when my classmates, my cousins, all of whom also shared the dream of being a doctor, were taking a break from their education or applying in high-end tuition tuition coaching centers that would allow them to crack the NEET entrance exams. My father told me something that at that point broke me. He told me that maybe you're not cut out for this. Do you really want to struggle at something you may end up being mediocre at? Or you want to find something that you would excel in and then you would thrive? So when I first heard this, it seemed like I was being told that I'm not good enough to do an MBBS. But it took me a while to absorb in the essence of what my father was trying to tell me. And I realized if I was struggling to get in, maybe surviving the journey would be much harder. So this is what I want to tell all of the students who are watching me. If I could go back to my 11th and 12th, I would have read more about pursuing pure sciences. Nobody spoke about it back then. It was unspoken of, unthinkable of a plan B if you did make it to a medicine degree. And that's so wrong. There's so many opportunities if you really want to figure out what you're good at. And I realized I enjoy teaching, I enjoy talking, and I enjoy talking about science. So I said I want to be a professor. And with that, I took my decision to do my bachelor's the very year, no gaps taken, in the best college in Calcutta, which is St. Xavier's. And St. Xavier's offered two courses related to biology. They didn't have zoology or botany, but they instead had microbiology and biotechnology. These are newer life science. Back then they were newer. I think now they're quite common life science courses. And the major difference being microbiology was a 3-year BSc program, while the biotechnology course was a 5-year integrated MSc. My decision to just pursue microbiology was based on the simple fact that it was a 3-year BSc. That if I wanted to pursue something different or wanted to do my master's somewhere else, I could have the opportunity to do that. But biotechnology would have me stuck in Xavier's for 5 years, which let me tell you is also a very good course to do if you're convinced that research and industry is what you want to do. But after my BSc is when I was exposed to the number of exams that existed to just choose what your master's is supposed to be. By then, I realized it was not just a BSc that could help you become a professor. You needed to have a master's, you needed to have a PhD, and which is when these are the exams that I highlight here, JGPLs to let you enter into an integrated research program in all the IISers and the TIFR, which is the Tata Institute of Fundamental Research, Mumbai, JNU, Jawaharlal Nehru University, Delhi, BHU, Banaras Hindu University, and CEEB, which is a central government scholarship for biotechnology. It's organized every year. And if you clear this exam, the government pays you a scholarship every month. The most common, the most spoken about exam was JAM, which would let you enter into IIScs or IITs. And I managed to clear only 4 of them. But in JJBLs, I could not crack the interview round. JNU and BHU, the scholarship programs were not available. And it was not a place where I thought I could enjoy studying much. But CEEB, on the contrary, they let you have an option of a number of central universities where you could go and choose which university you want to be a part of based on your ranking. There's a counseling session. And I chose this, and I chose to study in Pune University, pursuing a degree in biotechnology. But what itched me the most was that I didn't clear the entrance for IIScs or IITs. And our senior did, and he spoke elaborately about how the campus is, how research life is in IISc. And that's probably the first time that I told myself, I want to make it there. And I did my master's, as I said, in Savitribai Phule Pune University, in the Department of Biotechnology. It was a central government degree that I got, and along with it, the highlight was that we were given a scholarship of 60,000 per year, which would cover all your hostel tuition fees. And I mean, most of the programs don't pay you for doing a master's unless you're in IITs. So this was very interesting. And if anybody wants to tell their seniors or wants to be interested in this, please look out. CEB happens every year. After doing my master's in Pune University, I decided that I wanted to make my way into IISc. And I realized that the steps were not easy. I had to clear gate to even qualify and apply for the IISc interviews, following which I had to have a rank in any one of the funding, scholarship funding exams, which could be DBT BET, it could be CSIR or UGC. And I cleared DBT BET with an EIR of 26. And then there are 2 rigorous rounds of interviews, following which, when you make it to the shortlisted candidates, you get a choice of which lab you want to pursue a research in. Now, some institutes like IISc and NCBS or NCBS Bangalore or JNCSR Bangalore, they have a rotation system. Even in IISc, some departments have a rotation system. So once you join in, you have about 6 months to rotate in multiple labs and see which lab you want to do your research in. But when I joined IISc, I liked the prospect of what my present PI was doing. I liked that I was interested in cancer research. And fortunately, I got into the lab of my choice. And that's where I have been since 2018. And I'll take a minute or two to tell you what exactly I do. So my doctoral research is basically looking into metastasis. And okay, the video is not working. Um, okay. So cancer begins in cells that have undergone mutation deep inside their genome. Now, what this mutation allows the cell is to overpower all regulatory pathways and grow uncontrollably, leading to a primary tumor. And what happens is some of these cells from the primary tumor detach, survive in circulation, and spread in the body. They find a suitable place to set up home and grow again. And this is leading to secondary tumors. And this is how cancer spreads in the body. So this process is called metastasis. So as scientists, when we saw this, we went deja vu. We have seen this process happen before, not in cancer. We have seen this happen in normal embryonic development. When you were in your mummy's tummy. So when you were in your mummy's tummy and you had the first division of cells, within 5 weeks, your first heartbeat comes. And all of the processes that lead to your formation of your heart, kidney, lungs, guts, they're all dependent on a process called EMT. Now, this process, as you can imagine, is very important in embryonic development, but in healthy cells, this process is switched off. Now, cancer cells figured out a way to switch on this process so that they could utilize the EMT process and then move and spread to different organs. So this genius of cancer cells to hijack a developmental pathway is what I'm working on. I work on one hand on cancer cells, which are mostly breast cancer cells, and on the other hand, I look at embryonic development in our normal fruit fly. So if you see a small fruit fly on one of your bananas or oranges today in your house, know that that's what I'm working on. And I work on the eggs that these fruit flies lay. And this is some interesting fluorescent images that we had in the lab. These are not working. Anyway, so the idea was to parallelly look at two processes, cancer and embryonic development, and find out what is common and what can be used for targeted therapy. So that's where my research is leading. Now, this is where I am. But at this point also, one often feels that the only two career options in life science research include academia or industry. But that's so not true. So I'm going to take a minute or two to tell you about the different career options that exist in life science research. Research-based, obviously, there is research scientist. Either you clear the exams and join BARC or DAE for government-based research scientist jobs, or enter the industry, pharmaceutical industry, or hospitals for clinical research, where you will be working as a research scientist. One can be a geneticist, a marine biologist, a microbiologist, a forensic scientist, an anthropologist who's studying evolution, a food scientist, and obviously also a professor. But apart from this, non-research related, there exists a number of exciting career options for anybody who wants to do a graduation in pure sciences, but then wants to take a slightly different path. So one can choose to be a science communicator, which is a growing field where one is supposed to essentially explain scientific concepts to the lay common audience, and that requires a lot of talent. One can be a scientific illustrator, so all the books and the journals that you see with wonderful cartoons depicting science is actually done by science illustrators, and they need to have a background in science to do this. One can also choose to be a healthcare administrator. So with a graduation in pure sciences, if you want to pursue, you can go ahead for an MBA in healthcare management and then join in. That puts you in a very special niche where you have both the background of science or life science and managerial skills. Additionally, one can be a science editor because one is interested in writing. This calls for really well-paying jobs in publishing journals, publishing houses. Additionally, if one wants to enjoy both law and science, then IPR is an option. Intellectual property rights. So this, after your graduation, is a 1 or 2 year course. And what that leaves you with is a career where you're guiding people to get their own patents and ensure that their intellectual ideas or creations remain there, so that you're a lawyer for intellectual property. So these are the interesting career options that you have with life science research. Again, on in white background is everything that is research based, and on the blue is everything which is non-research related. So science is not just stuck in the labs. We also need people to do all of the blue part, so that science is appreciated and is reaching a far wider audience. Now, let me quickly bust a couple of myths about research life, some of which I personally had. So, as a child growing up, when I had to imagine what a scientist would be like, I always felt that they were somebody who were exceptionally, crazy or mad, or stuck in a lab alone doing some fancy experiments, and that's not. Additionally, when I grew up, I also thought, oh, Tony Stark is a scientist, so that must be somebody who's really rich, and doing some phenomenal work. But that's also not an accurate representation of science. So research life, a scientist is just somebody who has made hypotheses, who's looking into some fundamental aspects of life. And on a day-to-day basis, our experiments fail way more often than they actually work, but we learn everything in a process. So when Edison discovered the light bulb, he before discovered 101 ways not to discover a light bulb. So similarly, research, the in research means you have to keep looking, you have to keep finding. So a person who is in academic research is somebody who's constantly innovating, troubleshooting experiments, and going back to the lab on a day-to-day basis to find the one day of eureka in 100 days of mindful work. So slowly, let's bust a couple of myths. First, a quick meme of what at least I thought PhD student life was. What my friends think I do is I study all day. What my parents think I do is I'm already a doctor and I can diagnose and help people. So most often people misunderstand what a research doctorate is and how it's different from an MBBS doctor. What society thinks is I just control and copy and paste stuff and publish it. What my boss thinks I do is laze around, but that's not true. And what I think I do is really intellectual work, but then more often than not, there is a lot of frustration of things not working out, but we persevere because we're passionate about the science that we do. So, busting the myth one, is research life a 9 to 5 job? No. So the fact is, depending on the amount of lab experiments your research requires, PhD work hours vary, but it is absolutely possible to manage time with planning. So if one were to pursue subjects like physics, mathematics, social sciences, where lab experiments are less, physics still has them, as opposed to chemistry and biology, which is heavily based on wet lab experiments, the time will vary. So you need time to be able to do the experiments, troubleshoot them, do them in successful repeats to get statistically significant data. So that takes time, and it's not always a 9 to 5 job. Most of us are starting sometimes at 3 p.m. and going up till midnight, but then that's just once in a while. Depends on your research. Second myth is you have to be a genius to do a PhD. If it was true, I wouldn't be doing one. And as the name suggests, that's not how it works. There's a big no. You have to be passionate about your subject and persistent with your efforts. Knowledge is gained over time, making you an expert in your field by the time you earn the degree. So you don't enter knowing it all, but you exit knowing some of it all. Myth number three. Research life means there is no time for extracurricular activities. You're just stuck in your lab and you're bound to be there all the time. Big factor. That's me. And in the 5 years that I've been in research, I've done over 12 plays, danced, been there, done all the extracurricular activities that IISc had to offer. So my fact box says, haha, no, that's not true. If you have other talents that you'd like to explore, you definitely should. Time management is something that you will learn fabulously well if you're somebody who's into extracurriculars along with studying. And so if any of you right now are very good at some of these talents and are putting it away because it's your 10th or 12th, don't enjoy. You're learning time management skills now that's going to help you in your career as well. Myth number 4, research life is boring and it is meant for introverts alone. So this is me. I just won the Science Slam competition last year, and the entire competition was about slamming about your science in a fun and interesting way for common man, to common audience who then vote for you. So the entire idea was to put across your science in an interesting way. And to I believe that research life is boring and is for introverts is very wrong, because research life is anything but secluded. You're always in a lab full of people. That means you're always working as a team. You will share your work to the scientific audience in conferences and posters from time to time, and later in career to funding agencies. That tells you how important social networking is. Again, if you're an introvert who's interested in science, this shouldn't put you off. Let me tell you, there are a lot of people who otherwise they shy away from standing up on stage, but when it comes to talking about science that they're passionate about, they slay. So it's about what the quality of what you speak, and that's something that should drive you. Finally, research life doesn't pay well. Well, when you enter an Adidas shop and you see your salary written on a pair of shoes, I know that feeling. And I won't lie, the standard pay for a research fellow in India is about 42,000 per month, excluding HRA. The hikes happen every 4 years. However, don't lose heart, pursuing a PhD in IISc, IITs, or IISers lets you avail the Prime Minister Research Fund, which is almost 90,000 per month. So, quite at par with PhD scholars abroad. But I won't lie, PhD fellowship is a lot better abroad. Europe, America, wherever you're looking to pursue a PhD later, compared to India, their pay is obviously going to be a lot better. Now, after busting the myths, I want to talk to you about the best schools for a bachelor's in pure sciences. Um, IISc Bangalore, not because it's my alma mater, but because the ranking suggests that IISc is the best research institute in India. Uh, Key highlights, it offers a unique 4-year Bachelor of Science program. Now, this is carefully designed where the knowledge is imparted, carries a flavor of engineering and exposure to social science disciplines. So, there is a strong interdisciplinary flavor at a very young stage in your educational career. The subjects that IISc provides is biology, chemistry, physics, maths, environmental sciences, materials, engineering, and social sciences. So one can also do a bachelorate with a major and a minor. So if you're interested in biology and you want to do a minor in social sciences, psychology, one can do that. If you want to do a bachelor's in chemistry, but also have a minors in material sciences, that's absolutely possible in IISc. Now, how do you enter IISc after 12 for your bachelor's program? There are 3 ways. IISer aptitude test, which happens every year in June. You can check out about this at both the IISc website and the IISer website. They will tell you about the syllabus and a lot of mock test papers, which will help you gauge how to prepare for this exam. JEE Advanced and NEET UG. So there's a certain cutoff for each exam. So once the ranks are out, based on the cutoffs, you can apply in IISc and they will call you for counseling, and then you choose gain an entry. Moving to the second option, actually there are 7. These are the Indian Institutes of Science, Education and Research. They are established under the Ministry of Education, Government of India. Now, they offer a 5-year dual degree BSMS program for science students. So here you enter, you can give it a master's. You can also do that in IISc. You have to extend for 1 or 2. Now, they have highly competent and motivated faculty with passion for teaching and pursuing frontier areas of science. Now, these institutes, let me remind you again, they were established to provide a good platform for world-class research facilities. So the labs honestly are better because they are state of the art, and the options of subjects are way more. You have biological sciences, chemical sciences, earth and climate, earth and environment sciences, economic sciences, engineering, chemical, data science, electrical and computer science, and geological sciences. Again, their entrance is the IISer aptitude test, which happens in June, and JEE Advanced. That brings me to the end of my talk, where I've already covered my journey to a PhD, what I do in research, the career options, the bits about research, and the two places that you can choose to do pure sciences. And if you are somebody who's already made up your mind about just medicine and engineering, I hope this talk lets you think. You have something more to look into. I would have been very happy if somebody told me about this when I was in 11th, and I wouldn't have been so disheartened with the heartbreak that came with not clearing me. So back then I didn't know, or else I would have applied in IISc or IISc back then. One thing to tell you, most of the students in IISc alone, when they complete their UG, they go on to often start their own startups, or they go abroad for a direct PhD program. So that's how well IISc trains you, and that's the wonderful program that IIScs and IISers have to offer. Very few students know about it. So I hope this changes that. And in the end, I'm thanking all of you for listening. I'm happy to take any questions.
Thank you so much. I think the presentation was really interesting and informative. And even while I was watching, I was very intrigued, like exactly, the life of a researcher, how it actually is. And many of the pointers that you covered were really like informative in terms of anybody who's not even interested in this field might be a little bit curious as to what, you actually do and how it actually looks like. So I think it
Yay!
was a great overall um, session, and I think it will be very helpful for whoever's watching and maybe whoever will watch it later on. So we can move on to the questions. I have a few questions. The first question is a PhD mandatory to build a career in research, or are there opportunities at bachelor's and master level too?
So a PhD gives you an I PhD gives you a better pay scale. Let me put it like that first. But no, PhD is not mandatory for a career in research. You can enter the industry with a master's. Normally, they don't take students with a bachelor's, but with masters, there are a lot of students who enter industries, especially Bangalore is a hub for a lot of startups and for Syngene and Biocon. So a lot of people come in after their masters to join the research, and then they make them make mark that way. But again, the pay is always better with a PhD. The positions that the companies offer you as a researcher are better with a PhD. And it often doesn't matter where you've done your PhD from, if you're looking to work in India or abroad. It matters more what your PhD is about and what you figured out and what you contributed to the field of science. But I think way more important than that is a PhD changes the way you're tuned to think. So when a master student joins an industry, for them it's clay. They will mold you the way they want. You're trained in a certain industry. You're trained in a certain set of experiments, but there is no growth after that. You're not put at leadership positions. You're not put at scientific officer positions. That's a drawback. But a PhD puts you in a higher ranking position with a better pay. But again, if you're somebody who's interested in moving into the administrative side of research, having entered the industry, you can definitely do so. You do not need a PhD for that.
Okay, great. Thank you. The next question is, what are the best ways we can experience aspects of research before fully committing it to as a career trajectory after 12th?
So the best ways that I would personally suggest after 12th is in your summer vacation, a lot of labs actually, in my lab at least, we had a lot of students who come during their summers. They spent 2 weeks or 3 weeks in the lab, and we taught them some small experiments, or they just shadowed us for the day. For them, it's uh, a whole different experience. But for us, it's just an addition to the day, and we enjoy doing it. So if you're really interested in finding out what about research before you opt for a graduation program, you can write to professors in IIScs, IITs, or IISers, whatever's close to you and where you can go, and ask if you could come and join as an intern for 2 weeks and see what our research life actually is about. At least in IIScs, many school students are often welcome. Additionally, there is also open days that happen in these research institutes. In every state you can follow it. There's a research institute. Like for example, Delhi has AIMS, NII, JNU. There will be an open day for that particular university where you have access to enter. And every laboratory, they will come out with whatever they are doing to explain to the audience. So that also gives you a good experience, a first exposure to what the research life in India is like.
Right. Okay. That's good to hear. Uh, the next question is, and this question even I want to know the answer of. What does a typical day-to-day work looks like for a like research role or something that you're doing, like how your whole day looks like?
So I'll begin with saying not all of my days look the same. That's the first thing about research. It's not a corporate job where every day you get up, you get dressed, you go to work, you come back by 5. No. Every research, there are days. So on there'll be two types of days, if I can divide it like that. One is where I have a lot of lab work to do. So it begins with me going to lab by 8:30. I spent about an hour or half an hour jotting down the things to do for the day, because most of the time you're multitasking multiple experiments, or you're planning for the future experiments. So you have to lay out some work today, make some reagents, and set up some controls. So I write down all of that. Then 10 to 5 or 10 to 6, I'll be working in the lab. And we're a lot of students. I'm not alone in the lab at any point. There are a lot of other students who are doing their own projects. And uh, a usual day inside a laboratory is both parts of doing experiments, sitting down between experiments, trying to read, doom scrolling on Instagram. All of it is part of it. Reading new papers, discussing stuff, or generally having these journal clubs or lab meetings of the lab. So that's a usual day for me. And then I come back at 6, and then I forget all about lab. I enjoy my entire evening the way I want to. And on other days where I do not have experiments, I put down all the data I've collected. It happens every 45 to 50 days, where I need to get my data together. I need to understand what the science is telling me. So those days is normally either I'm here, I'm in the library, or I'm in my lab from 8 to 4, and I am just sitting and processing data, doing a lot of software associated work, analyzing the data, putting it into graphs, making it visible, making sense of it, and then putting down parts of my thesis. So it's alternating between the 2 days. You either have experiments to do or you have analysis to do. There are a lot of people who do both together. That requires a lot more genius than I have. But on an ordinary day, this is how it looks. It's either of it.
Okay. So, which one is your favorite day? Like the first one or the second?
Experiments. Any day. I wish there was a way in which you could just keep doing experiments and the data would just arrange itself and the thesis would write itself. I could keep doing experiments.
Okay. The next question that I have is, how challenging is the transition from course-based learning to independent research work while pursuing PhD?
That's a very good question. So that hit me when I did my master's. So most of the master's program that you would go for, they have a 6-month period in the end where you're supposed to do a dissertation project, which is entirely research based. So a coursework means if there is an exam, you have a syllabus, you study, you take the effort, you make your notes, and you write that exam, and you know how you're going to fare. Research is not like that. You could be a mediocre student who just does experiments really well, who's analyzed troubleshooted them well and found something extraordinary, versus highly gifted student who's just stuck at one experiment that's not going forward. It's all possible. So the transition between coursework to research was, in coursework there's a tailor-made syllabus. Research is you're making the lines that go and become part of that textbook or syllabus that you're reading. So research is a lot more like you read something, you figure out why this is happening, then you have to sit and design experiments that would answer the questions. Some of those experiments will fail, and then you have to go and do some more reading to figure out what is the other way that I can approach the problem. And it's a lot more thinking and then learning from mistakes than learning first and then remembering an answer, if I can put it that way. So research makes you think and research makes you humble. So the best of the best can go and make mistakes on the lab table. It happens.
Okay. So I have the last question. How vital is publishing papers while pursuing PhD for career growth prospects as a researcher later?
So that also depends on where you see your career going. So honestly, um, a lot of uh, a lot of PhD programs, especially the government funded ones, the part that I am in, it's mandatory for us to publish, for us to get a degree, at least one paper. And but what that has led to is publications in low impact journals. So what do I mean by low impact journals? There are journals where you can publish. Now they're categorized as high impact and low impact. By impact, it means how much of science is just further established. So if I did something and Aditi is a scientist and she goes on to read what I do, and then she does something above based on what I did, then she cites me from the journal I did. So that makes my work highly impactful. So if your publication in high impact journals does make a huge difference in your career, but having said that, most people look into the kind of work that you put in. A lot of students get to wonderful places for their postdocs and industrial jobs based on their thesis, and they may not have yet published papers. And it is the interview process that lets them. So as I said, it will change you. PhD changes you, but if you're somebody who's interested in, moving away from hardcore research, you're looking at a career only in industry. Academia. You're not looking into a career in academia, be a professor in the future. You're looking at industrial research, or you're looking at a job in the as a scientific editor or an illustrator. Then the paper publication actually doesn't matter.
Okay. Okay, thank you. I think that's all the questions I had. Um with that, I think we can wrap up today's session. And I would like to thank you for sharing your experience and your journey with us today. And I think it was a very interesting session, and everybody got to know that it's not just research. There are a lot of other things that are also involved. So that was good to know. And I hope that all the questions that we've covered were answered. And but if anybody who's watching later on has any more questions related to this topic or any other career related queries, you can simply scan the QR code on your screen and it will take you to our web app. Then you'll be able to see an Ask Me Anything section, and you can select that and get your answers directly from our expert counselors. So you can go ahead and explore. Thank you so much again for doing this live session with me and with iDreamCareer.
Thank you, Aditi. Thank you, iDreamCareer. It's quite rare to get opportunities to speak to school students and influence how they think. It's something I wish I had, so I'm hoping that this makes sense.
Yes, thank you. Okay, so we do weekly career classes every week, and we cover different topics from different industry experts. So don't forget to hit that subscribe button and stay updated to never miss any career classes. We hope you found this session valuable and have a good day. Thank you so much. I just can wait for a few seconds.